Hello, ladies and gents, and we are back with some Tottenham content tonight because I am joined by the wonderful Wes. I've forgotten to put my Spurs shirt on because I'm still reliving last night. But Wes, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. Kind of woke up this morning thinking about Ollie Watkins' unbelievable finish from last night's game. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, all good. Been a long day today, but yeah, hopefully I will be all right to chat some Spurs with your good self tonight, Holly.
I'm sure you will be because you are the man with all the knowledge, and I am the one that facilitates it by asking you questions. But no, it's good to obviously talk about Spurs. It's been a little while. Thanks to everybody that watched last week. Thank you all for tuning in. I know that I've been very absent, but it was nice to kind of catch up. We've got more transfers to talk tonight. But before we do that, as we know, this show is sponsored by Kofa. So Wes, far away, do your thing.
Yeah, so Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy is my coaching business in the Milton Keynes area, Dele Alli and Leah Williamson country. So basically, if you feel like your child is the next Dele Alli or Leah Williamson, get in touch with us because we would love to help support your child on their footballing journey. We have lots and lots of good things coming up as well, including 4 weeks, not just three, 4 weeks of summer camps, which are all themed differently, and each day is themed as well. So something a little bit different for the summer, and we're all looking forward to it. So please come and join us and join in with all the fun.
I love it. Make sure you go check out Kofa as well. Welcome to everybody that's tuning in. Hope we are all good too and still reliving, obviously, last night. But we're going to jump into some Tottenham transfer news and watch me butcher all of the names. So, first of all, we're going to fire away with Chiesa from Juventus, who is a winger. Now, Wes, how do you feel about getting potentially another winger into the club?
Yeah, I like the idea of Chiesa, put it that way. Having watched him for Italy at the Euros, looks a fantastic player. Believe he's available for around 25 million euros, which is an absolute snip in this day and age and in this market. Think he would add a lot as well, Holly, in terms of the way he plays, the way we play. I think it would be a really, really good fit. And I just hope that Paratici is still about somewhere at Tottenham, and he can call in another favour from somebody that he knows at Juventus to try and get this one over the line. Because I think what I like about Chiesa is he can play off and operate off both flanks. And I think it's very, very rare that you can find a wide player or a winger that can do that. And he did look really, really positive for Italy. Pretty much one of their brightest sparks, I think, from their team at the Euros. I think probably him and Barella and Caliafori were probably the three that stood out to everybody from the Italians at the Euros. Holly, you're on mute. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. I don't know what's happened. It's a good job this isn't live. Oh, Holly's just decided to leave me in the absolute lurch. What's happened here?
What? Did
You're
it
back.
crash?
I
Are we
don't
still
know,
live?
but
Oh, we're still live. We're still live.
we're still live, Holly. You decided to leave me midstream, bearing in mind, and you're the one in control of everything. So
Well,
thanks for that.
sorry, the thing was, right, I said I wasn't muted, so I was very confused. But what I was saying at the time, thank you everybody for hanging in, was the fact that obviously for me, it's just, I'm a bit worried about of wingers we're kind of getting. Is that a concern, or do you think it's more of a let's add more strings to our bow sort of thing?
In terms of the amount of wingers, I would probably say that there's at least Brian Hill, who will be moving on. I don't know potentially if there could be another winger that might move on. I think we're probably now of the opinion that Kulusevski can play wide, but his best work was in that 10 position. So it's quite nice to have the options and the strength in depth. Obviously, you don't want to stockpile players. But yeah, obviously we've got Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, Son, Richarlison can play out there. We've got Brian Hill, but we've got Werner. But I think there's going to be at least one, or at least probably, like I say, Brian Hill that will probably move on. So yeah, it might be that Chiesa is an absolute non-starter, but I think when you hear about a player of his caliber and his quality being available at that price, I think it's probably put a lot of clubs on red alert, to be fair.
To be fair, that's probably true because obviously we talk about in recent weeks getting young players in and this, that, and the other. And then when we talk about someone coming in that's of an older age but has been there and kind of done it, we then turn our nose up. So I kind of get what you're kind of saying. I'm going to the other end of the spectrum now. I'm going to talk about another midfielder, and that is Doué. Now, he is 19 years old, so we are going to the other side of the spectrum. How do you kind of feel about this one? What's your kind of take?
Yeah, so I was on the Park Lane pod with the gang on Sunday, and I thought I knew a bit about this player, and then turns out I didn't know as much as I thought, because I thought he was more of a central player, sort of number 10. Turns out he can operate off the front, and everything else. So, but I think again another young starlet, if you like, one who's got some serious potential, and has been courted by some of the best clubs in and around Europe. So I think the fact that we're even in the conversation for a player like that, shows the progress that we've made in the last 12 months. Because rewind perhaps to when Antonio Conte was there, we weren't really in the market for these like up and coming young stars. Is he a starter or one for the future? You could argue both. Obviously, he's played a lot of games for Rennes. Believe French under 21 international as well. But obviously, with his age profile, he is probably still one for the future as well. But I think he comes in, and the outlay that Spurs would be looking at, I don't think he's one of them that you would, you're not paying 40 million for him to be one for the future, put it that way. We can't hear you again. It's happened again. It's happened again. Hollie Agombar, it's happened again. Technology, people. Technology. Who would have thought it? You're
Honestly,
back.
everybody's seeing my face in like 4K at the minute because it's so big on the screen. I am not muting my mic anymore. Done. You're gonna have to hear the traffic outside because I'm fed. But no, it's yeah. I think like you said, it's potentially one of the start. But again, we're getting him in nice and early, embed them in. And again, I think this is kind of the philosophy that Spurs are kind of going down again. Because obviously, I know you don't know too much about him. But how do you think he's like performed at such a young age? Is he someone that's kind of taken the league by storm, or is it more that look, we want to get in before someone else does?
I think it's more the latter, but when he has played and he has performed for Rennes, he has done really, really well. So yeah, I think there has been rumours that PSG was sniffing, but I think that's because he's young and French, and they've almost done a 360 PSG in terms of how they're evolving their project. They're not going for the ready-made superstars anymore. They're going for players that are of a good quality, but they can get and mold and keep for a little longer and almost build a team. Whereas obviously previously with PSG, it was like, when can we get? Whereas it was almost like they were trying to build the Harlem Globetrotters or the Galacticos, the French version of the Galacticos, and it didn't work. So they were like, right, we've had arguably the best front three that you could ask for on paper, and that didn't work. Right, what's next? So like I say, PSG done a massive sort of 360. But then having said that, from a PSG perspective, again, like they've brought in Ugarte and he could be off to Man United. Hasn't really had much of a look in because he can't get ahead of Vitinha and Zayn Emery, who's been brilliant for PSG when he's come in. So yeah, if Doué was to go there, you'd understand it because the standing that PSG have, especially in France. But I think if he was to come in for us, it would be probably more as a 10 operating also wide left. I've heard people say that he could be a Son replacement. I personally don't see that happening. I probably would argue someone like Jonathan David, who we've been linked with recently, would probably be more of a Son type replacement because he is similar to Son is Jonathan David in the sense that he covers multiple positions, and I think we covered that last week. So yeah, that's kind of how I see that one.
No, it's interesting, like you say. It just depends, obviously, where this is going to turn into an actual thing that we're going to go after with Doué. But yeah, Jonathan Davies, I think you're right. I know we spoke about him heavily last week, but he is probably naturally more that Son replacement. I mean, it's sad that we're talking about a Son replacement, but sadly, whereas soon that time's going to come, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously, happy birthday to Sonny. I don't know if he watches or listens, but yeah, he's obviously 32 now, so there has to be some form of succession plan in place because it's a case of he's not going to go on forever. So yeah, I think even Mr. Paul O'Keefe on Twitter had said, I think it was either January or even last year, that the club are working on a succession plan for Heung-min Son, and it's one of those that, okay, they're probably now, when you hear something like that, it's okay, they're in the business of shortlisting players who they believe are of a similar profile to Heung-min Son, and it's a case of, when do the football club act upon signing one of them? Is it now? Is it January? Is it next summer? Is it 2 years time, for example?
It's nice that, I mean, it's not nice, but it is good that we're also forth thinking.
Yeah,
Gone are the days where we kind of go, oh shit, we need a replacement and we haven't got one. So
yeah.
it's quite nice that they are being proactive. But we're going to move on to obviously another one, which is Neto for Wolves. Now, apparently they're in regular contact with him, but there is a price tag of 60 million. And I don't know about you, Wes, but last time we played a player for that kind of money, yes, he's had a bit of game time at Spurs. He's done well at certain times. But how do you kind of feel about Neto potentially coming?
Oh, listen, Pedro Neto is a player that I've admired from afar for a long time. I absolutely love Pedro Neto. I think he's absolutely brilliant. What I like about Pedro Neto is how direct he is, and it's just, I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to come at you, and I'm going to keep coming at you, and then what I like is he never gets overly frustrated if he tries and beats for fullback and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he'll keep going, and eventually it's a case of, okay, I'll wear the fullback down. I like the fact as well he's got the really good ability to go both ways, and I think that's where he differs a lot from someone, for example, like a Kulusevski. He's a lot more quicker than Kulusevski, but then with the way Ange plays, and Neto's hamstrings haven't been the nicest to him over the last few years. So yeah, I think, listen, it's a player that I would absolutely love to see in a Spurs shirt, but I wouldn't say tread with caution. But yeah, he's obviously not had the best time with injuries, and I think that's been a real shame. And I think the worst bit from a Neto's perspective is just when you feel like he's hitting that real bit of form, he breaks down. So I don't know if the club, I mean, Levy will negotiate on the price anyway. It's what he does. But yeah, I think the club might just, yeah, edge with caution on that one and side on caution with it because, like I say, injury record. But having said that, when he has played for Wolves, he's been brilliant. He's been absolutely brilliant.
And I suppose that argument of Prem proven is definitely within Neto, which is another bonus. I think you are right. It's just that worry in the past of obviously our treatment table, not necessarily being the best to run a player back to fitness, whether that be because of the player's individuality and how they kind of come back to fitness, or whether it is just our medical team. But again, if that was to, even if he came on and had, I mean, for 60 million, you don't really want him to come on and have cameos, do you?
No, and I think it's a big outlay, and obviously Levy's had fingers burnt beforehand out with the big outlays and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say he's going to be shopping a bit more carefully, but yeah, I think with Neto you have to bear in mind, like I say, that injury record and everything else. But it's just a real shame because I think had he been and had a run of consistent game time and was playing to the level that we know he can reach, I have a feeling he would have at least been, if he wasn't in the squad for the Euros, he'd have definitely been in Portugal's squad for this Euros. And I think actually he would have made a really good and big impact, especially coming off the bench because of his pace and how direct he can be.
I think that's the thing. I think we need a bit of directness in the team. I know you
Yeah.
speak about Kulusevski and this, that, and the other. I think having that bit of directness would be great. But again, for that price tag and his kind of fitness and injuries he's kind of had, I don't know whether that's going to play very well in the Tottenham camp. And sadly, moving on to another sad note, and that is Eze. Now, we spoke last week how we'd love him to be at Spurs, but obviously we've heard the kind of news come out today that obviously Palace don't want to get rid of both Elise and Eze, and Elise's already gone. So do you think there's a bit of wiggle room to get him to Spurs still? Do you reckon it will kind of happen after the tournament, after Sunday, and then a couple of weeks after, or do you think that ship's already sailed and gone?
Look, Palace can say they don't want to lose him, but at the end of the day, Eberechi Eze has a release clause in his contract. So if Spurs were to trigger that release clause, Palace can't really argue. It's then down to the player and the club, the buying club, i.e. Tottenham in this instance, to agree personal terms and everything else, which I can't really see being too much of an issue. So yeah, I think it's one of them where it could be one of those that really drags out because everybody knows that Eze's got this release clause. There was rumours that City were potentially sniffing, but I think they've now gone a bit quiet. So yeah, I think again it's one that we would love to see at Spurs, but I think if it is to happen, it's not going to happen as quickly as everybody would make out.
I think that's the thing. I think because we all really want him, we want it to happen like that. And I just don't think it is going to happen. Like, say, with Palace being so reluctant. I know you said, obviously, you can go to the player and kind of negotiate that kind of release clause. It's just going to be a painful one. It gives me vibes of, who was it that was supposed to come to Spurs and it fell? Was it Mihalovic, wasn't it? Where it was almost nearly done and then it fell through right at the last minute. Does that kind of worry you? Or do you think it will be done... not properly this time because it probably was done last time. Do you think it will go through the right channels and he'll be in a Spurs shirt come obviously the end of the transfer window?
Of course, it worries me because it's Tottenham and Daniel Levy. 5 million image rights and all that for Dybala. We've had Bruno Fernandes and Ruben Diaz in the palms of our hands. We've had Fernando Morientes in the palm of our hands once upon a time. We've had loads and loads of players that would have improved the team at the time. But yeah, for one reason or another, deals didn't get done. So it's always going to worry you, I think, as a Spurs fan. But listen, I think it's one of them. If Ange really wants him, I think, judging by what Ange has been given recruitment-wise in terms of players coming in, I think we'll get him if Ange wants him. But I think there's a lot of people that will say, "I'll give Ange what he wants and back him." But you've got to also back him by players coming in the door, brilliant. But you also got to get rid of the ones that he doesn't want at the same time. And there's still a clutch of players that you would say that are still at Spurs that we need to get rid of. I think obviously losing Sessegnon, Tanganga on frees and then tearing up Ndombele's contract. Okay, it's a start. Selling Joe Rodon to Leeds for 10 million, again another start. But we've still got Reguilon, Spence, etc. that are still sort of floating about. There's rumours that we might go back in for Jacob Ramsey, and then there's something with Lo Celso going the other way, which wouldn't be for me the worst deal in the world, because the thing with Lo Celso for me, Holly, and I don't know if you found this as well, is there's definitely a player in there. It's just that we don't get to see it. And that's been the biggest shame with Lo Celso, because I think when he has played for Spurs, he's actually been all right. But I just don't think we've seen enough of him, which has been a real shame.
Sorry, I think so as well. The fact that obviously now he's got those players he's got to try and get in front of. If it wasn't hard enough in that already, he's got the likes of Maddison to try and get in front of. And I don't know. I think towards the end of obviously last season, Maddison's form kind of dipped a little bit. But we know that... it sounds really horrible, but we know that Maddison's in front of the pecking order than Lo Celso. And I don't know, maybe come next season, obviously with the European football and all the cups we're going to be involved in, do you think Spurs should hold on to Lo Celso? Do you think he should just move on? And as well, kind of a two-part set question. You can tell it's late because I'm rabbling on. Do you think as well, like, we're going to get these players out that need to be gone this summer transfer window? Because that's all we want to happen. But we know that it's not necessarily. So for you, what's the kind of timeline? Will Spurs be in the position you want them to be in maybe this time next year, would you say, in this summer transfer window?
I think in terms of Lo Celso, I would potentially look at getting rid reluctantly. It would be one of those where, like I say, if we feel like we can use him in a deal to get somebody else in. I know Emery's been a big fan of Lo Celso, obviously signed him twice for Villarreal on loan. So that might be a move that kind of suits all parties, a little bit similar to when we bought Højbjerg and sold Walker Peters. Um, do I envisage Spurs being in this type of position or in a better position in a year's time? I would like to say that we are going to be obviously another year into the project, another year into the journey. I would like to think we'd be in a better position, but I still think there will be work to do this time next season as well. Because when I highly doubt we're going to get everybody we want out the door in the next, say, 6, 8 weeks or so. I can't for the life of me see it happening. If it does happen, I take my hat off to anybody working on the recruitment team, because it can be really, really difficult to shift a player, never mind at a club like Tottenham, where people are getting paid very well and rewarded well for their talent and their ability, which isn't the player's fault, but they can kind of kick up a fuss and be like, well, I'm going to sit here and pick up my money because I can, and I'm not that fussed that my agent can't find me a club, because at the end of the day, I'm going into work, I'm getting well rewarded, I'm living in London, my wife loves living in London, or my partner loves living in London. So yeah, it can be really difficult to get players out. I think if we manage to do it, then we will be in a brilliant position then this time next year, where it could just be the odds sort of, maybe one or two in or out.
No, I think you make some valid points. I think that's the thing. I think there's too much to do this summer transfer window. I think the biggest thing for me, as bad as it sounds, was ripping up Ndombele's contract. I think that was the best thing the club done, because as we know with Spurs, it's very hard for us to sit there and kind of bite the bullet and be like, oh, we've cocked up a little bit here, let's just get rid, sort of thing. And I feel like for the first time I've been able to sit there and be like, okay, we're actually thinking of doing something this season. I mean, for you, is there, I know we spoke about Lo Celso, but is there one player that you deem has to go this summer, just to kind of put us on that next kind of stepping stone?
In terms of has to go, God, I don't know. I think that's a bit harsh. Like, in terms of like, right, get out of my club. Yeah, I think that is a bit harsh. There's players who I would probably like. I wouldn't mind sort of seeing, like, obviously Spence, but then I think he's not been treated very well. But then also you hear rumours of a bad attitude as well. Region, I don't think works now in this system and the way that we play. I think Højbjerg's most likely going to go. I think he's 29 now, so it's kind of his final opportunity to get a move. I think Troy Parrott will probably go as well, because I just don't think he's what we need right now. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's one player that I go, oh my God, get this guy out of my club like now. So yeah, I think that's a bit harsh, but there's probably players that will go, and you say like, fair play, or good luck in your next adventure with your new club.
This is why Hollie does not do a show after 8, because I can become very brutal. But no, I think you're right. I think I think Højbjerg's probably one that's not a death certain to leave, but probably one that's probably the right time to kind of move on. I think he's done a great job this season when we've needed him, but I think it's time to kind of move on. But Wes, it's been amazing tonight to pick your brain in transfers, and I want to say I want the the outro today. So where can everybody find you, Wes?
Okay, seeing as you've asked for the long outro, the long version, the extended mix, if you like. It's Twitter at Wezo10, unofficial Moose Dembele fan account. So yeah, usually tweeting all things about the West Belgian. I think I did put a couple out the other day, actually, saying he's the greatest of all time, which he is. Instagram's at Wezo32, usually at Spurs game, although fortunately can't go to the pre-season friendly in Bayern Munich. It was already sold out before I even realised. So I'll be having to watch that on the box at home. Where else? Oh, football coaching, Kofa MK across socials, football content at WM32 Football. Hopefully have a new show and a new thing that I'm going to try out pretty soon, and sort of in preparation for next season as well. Holly, I think I've absolutely butchered that, to be fair.
Yeah, that wasn't your finest moment. I'm not going to
No, it
lie.
wasn't. It
This is
wasn't.
why we do shows early, because we're both knackered at this time. But no, it's been great again. Oh my god, my glasses are wonky. To have you on the show as my, I don't want to say guest, because you are literally like my co-host. You are the man with all the knowledge. So I want to say thank you. Thanks to everybody else in the comments who's going to rewatch this. Obviously, Tottenham will be back very, very soon. So Hollie Hotspurs will be back as usual soon. And so will obviously the Hotspur Huddle, where hopefully Nelson will make a little appearance. So we can kind of balance it out with a little bit of his Arsenal talk, because I'm sure he's missed talking and trying to wind us up about that. But it's been good fun tonight. Like I say, obviously, big up England at the weekend. Hopefully, me and Albert, I'm away at the weekend. So hopefully on Tuesday, we'll have that show. So make sure you watch that. And like we always say, without a doubt, come on, you Spurs.
How are you, Spurs?